convene the March 9th Board of Supervisors meeting. This is a work session with our joint meeting with the school board. First on the agenda is our presentations by the schools. Number one, the reversion project updates and the CARES Fund request. So, Ms. Dr. Robin Phelps, I'll turn it over to you.
We will handle the beginning portion of the meeting as information on behalf of the school board. And so tonight we're going to cover reversion projects updates with the CARES funding request. You guys received email prior to the meeting with all of the documents for your review. And after we discuss that, we'll move into FY22 mandated positions, the FY21 mid-year compensation, the 22 CIP proposal and carryover, and health insurance updates. In the meeting request, we also included what our action items were that we were suggesting to have closure with at the end of the meeting. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Calveric and Marsha, who will be doing a presentation this evening in the interest of time.
Thank you, Dr. Rollins-Fells. As Dr. Rollins-Fells indicated, we have shared with you reversion project updates and CARES funding information in advance of today's meeting, just to expedite this agenda item. We would be happy to answer any questions that you have from your review of these materials. They were sent via email on Friday. We do have them bound together by the clip, and so everything that you received electronically is within this clip. Are there any questions about reversion updates? Projects are moving along beautifully. We're really excited about the ability to implement many of these measures that we've identified together. Any questions associated with the CARES information that was an action item related to our February joint meeting? Using teacher wait time? Hearing none, is everyone comfortable moving beyond agenda item number 1? You're certainly welcome to email if you have any thoughts that come to mind at a later time. Great.
I think we did have one question regarding the position that you asked that I had in my notes. I didn't see my notes, but I think that was the only question.
And I'm brain dead now. I'm just leaving.
I think we had.
I was
questioning the ability to use funds for that position. I believe that was the only question that we clear that. We're okay.
We did. I think that was a question that Mr. Seeley posed while we were together, and we indicated that within our regulations that we are permitted to pay for positions that are supportive of the work that has occurred in relation to the pandemic. And so that is outlined in one of the documents. It is very clearly stated that it can be utilized for employee personnel matters. Yes, sir.
It's in the October 9th superintendent's memo on the next to last page.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. All right, the next. I'm sorry.
Before you leave that, do we have any idea what the next round of COVID funds looks like?
Well, we don't have an exact number, but literally this morning we were engaged in a phone call with the state superintendent, and he indicated that information should be coming out in a superintendent's memo within the next week. They anticipate a large quantity of funding, being that they received, I think it was $2.1 billion. And so they did state, now there is no factual foundation to this comment, but they did state that they are anticipating 2 times the amount that we have just received, and we received $2.8 million of CARES funding. The beautiful aspect of the funding that is expected to arrive is that it is available for schools through 2024. And there are 4 new stipulations that are not present in the other funding sources that will be present in this funding source, such as having a 20% set aside for learning loss. And so that is to address that ongoing impact of this year of instruction long term. And so that is something new. We also need to be able to have a maintenance of equity. That's a new term. We don't know what that means. And so we are anticipating a large amount of information coming to us so that we're compliant with that new measure. And then there were two smaller items that they briefly mentioned that we don't have any additional information on. But we'll let you know as soon as we hear regarding that amount.
And then you can use that money for anything, right?
No, sir. It will have very tight restrictions, just as all of the prior funds. But I do believe it will include the facility component in relation to air quality, just like the SR2 monies did, which was a lovely addition for many of us. Thank you. So moving into FY22 mandated positions, we really just wanted to provide an update with, to you regarding some changes with the General Assembly. So the first document you will see that looks like this, that has the color-coded lines in there, is in relation to the school counseling mandate. As previously shared with you, the governor has moved forward with the 325-to-1 counselor to student ratio. And this just provides you all of our data. If you look at, starting from the right-hand side, you count 3 columns in and it says school ratio. That shares with you exactly what the ratio is at each of our schools. You can see all 3 elementary schools are high and exceed 325. It is a division ratio, and so we realize that when you look at the bottom, we're at 338-to-1. We need to be 325-to-1. So we need to secure 1 additional counselor, and that position will be split between Madison and Lewis and Clark, which reflect our highest numbers of students to counselor ratio. So that's 1 mandated position. The second mandated position that was relatively new, and not that it caught us off guard, but it was introduced by the Senate very late in the General Assembly process, and it has a large fiscal impact on Caroline, is called Specialized Student Support Positions, and this is Senate Bill 1257. So I'm going to look at the statistics that are on this page if you're following along with me, because the stats, I think, are much easier to understand than the narrative. So this new mandate for standards of quality requires 3 specialized student support positions per 1,000 students. The positions that they identify must be licensed people, not licensed by teacher license, but licensed professionals in the area of social workers, school psychologists, school nurses, licensed behavioral analysts, licensed assistant behavioral analysts, and other licensed health and behavioral positions. So we have approximately 4,200 students, which requires, based on the 3 to 1,000 ratio, 13 specialized student support positions. We currently have 9. We have 5 registered nurses, 2 social workers, and 2 school psychologists, of which 1 has been vacant all year. And so we, of course, need 4 additional positions to be compliant.
Dr. Keller,
Yes, sir.
do you have other people serving in those roles that are not licensed?
That's a really good question, Mr. Forehand. We actually have Darlene Keener. She's our coordinator of behavioral specialties, or behavioral specialist, but she is not licensed through the health department licensure. And so we would be looking at the possibility of getting her licensed, but this is hot off the press, and so we're just in that investigative process. But no, outside of that, we do not contract with any vendors to provide any services either that would qualify in this category. So good question. We've been slicing and dicing it many ways to see if we could pull together at least 1 or 2 positions within our current employee base. The issue, just to finish quickly those 2 bullets, Mr. Underwood, funding that is being provided or will hopefully be provided through basic aid is only increasing by $13,685. And these 4 positions alone are estimated to cost us $323,866. That does not include the counseling position. So we have 5 mandated positions that we must move forward with to be compliant. So at this time, I'd be happy to entertain any questions. We just wanted to provide you with an update in light of the fact that there was no money proposed by Mr. Culley when his budget was presented on March 9th, and that we have such limited, increase of basic aid, from the state.
Dr. Calvert, real quick, knowing that your, membership members coming up at the end of the month, you're saying your membership numbers are gonna be 4226? So you're saying that's gonna be your report, your number here on the yellow, your 4226 going to be.
At the moment.
That's your, at the moment.
Yes, we're waiting for March 31.
Right, for March, which is about a week, that's why I'm asking, that's why it's projected. What was your number last year?
I don't know that I
This is enrollment, so 4226 is enrollment.
Now I'm asking about what's
Average
your
daily
average daily
membership.
membership?
Average daily membership is budgeted at 4055 for FY '21. It came in at 4072 or so.
Right.
So
two different figures.
That's two different, that's right.
Two
it should be,
different
right.
figures.
That's what I'm looking at, the average daily, if the membership number is the one you're gonna report here in another week.
average daily
And what was your
membership.
average daily membership number in September that you reported?
If you go to the very last document that's in the folder,
Maybe I'm ahead of myself then.
we did receive a word from Pam that you were looking for an update, so we did print that off for you so that you have access to ADM and ADA.
Right,
So our fall membership that we reported in September was 3995. And we're budgeted for 4055.
But again, the positions are based on your enrollment.
okay, yeah, I understand that, but, correct me if I'm correct, you're gonna be paid based on ADM, is that correct?
That is correct.
So, you're saying there's a difference of basically 200 students in terms of ADM versus ADA? Because one always goes up, I know that, the average daily membership should never decrease, is that right?
Not necessarily though.
Yeah, that's true.
We typically do see that it decreases throughout the year.
Your average
Typically.
daily membership decreases.
We do. We are hopeful this year that it will go up, because we're budgeted at 4055, and we've actually been running year-to-date 4036. So we're
But you-
hoping that fall membership will increase from 3995 to
And
4036.
you're saying your enrollment to date is 4226.
Yes, that's our enrollment. It includes pre-K kids also.
Does pre-K count for ADM?
It does
It
not.
does
for
not,
ADM.
so, right, so I want to compare apples to apples because the numbers that I have here they're not the same that are on the DOE website. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of talking about the same numbers.
Okay.
So when we're looking at funding, the kindergarten numbers are not included, so we shouldn't include those numbers at this point. It should not be preschool, yeah,
Is not included.
preschool,
Correct.
excuse me. So I just wanna make sure we're talking apples to apples here, but this is a little off to me.
So the 4026 is including preschool.
But we're talking two different things. What
Yes.
Dr. Calveric just went over
Right,
is enrollment. So enrollment is SOQ based.
I know, okay, so.
Funding is average daily membership. And last year, our average daily membership was around 4076. I
So
don't have
there's a
it with
difference.
me tonight.
So there is a difference. Okay, so tell me, how many SOQ positions do we fund?
Approximately 370 the state funds.
The state funds 370 positions,
Seven.
What?
Is it 7 or 70?
70. And
Including support.
including sport, right? And how many of those positions? So you say you have 600 people working for schools, correct?
700.
700 people. So you have set 370 mandated positions or required positions based on SOQ. So it seems to me that you have 330 positions that you have to make some decisions about, to me, based on mandate. Mandated means they have to be there. So we can talk about the other positions, but I'm not sure we're going to see eye to eye in terms of mandated versus non-mandated, SOQ versus which is pretty much the same thing we're saying. So I'm just thinking, and my thinking is different. I told you I'm a business person, so you have to forgive me. Because I'm looking at it from what is required of me to do, what do I have the power to change? You can't change it. You can't change those requirements.
That's correct.
But you can change some of the other side of it.
Absolutely, and we have been modifying that on an annual basis based on the inability to fully fund everything that we've needed. So we're well aware of the need to cut positions
Okay, I'm just saying,
as
that's all,
appropriate.
I just wanna tell you what I wanna be transparent with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't want you to say what Mr. Underwood said, so-and-so. What I'm saying is you have control. You don't wanna manage and govern, I got that. I'm just saying, those are things that are on your side of the table that we're gonna leave to you to do, okay?
Well, and
That's
I
what we
did
are.
state when we began that this was an informational update to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're gonna go
So
ahead and
keep
move
on, give me
on.
information, you're right.
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and move on to item number 3 in recognition of the time.
Yes,
Item 3 is a revisit of the FY21 mid-year compensation. I will not beat a dead horse and
Right.
spend a large amount of time on this circle graph that you are
Right.
very familiar with, and then of course the flip side, which demonstrates Caroline County Public Schools falling
Right.
14th out of 16 regional comparisons. It's all a narrative that we are very familiar with. What I did want to add today as new information is documentation regarding vacant positions. And I thought that was important because I did have the opportunity to attend one of your recent, I think it was a public hearing or a workshop, I can't recall which it was, and another organization within Caroline County was being discussed in relation to salary increases. And when that conversation was occurring, one of the driving forces of that dialogue was their vacancies and their inability to fill vacancies because of their regional salaries not being competitive. And that is the same sheet of music that we have been singing from for years, and you've recognized in that we were committed to the 3-year implementation of the 2018 salary study. So we wanted to pull this data for you to share with you that we have 7% of our positions currently vacant. Now that does not mean that we can do without them. Let's just be clear about that. But 14 of those are teaching positions, and the majority of those, if not all, I dare say, have been vacant since the beginning of the school year and filled by long-term subs. There are a number of factors that play into that. 1 is salary, and 2 is there's a teacher shortage. So collectively, those equate to 14 vacancies. But I don't need to list every employee category. You can see we have 50 vacancies that have been long-term vacancies and the impact it's having on the school division. That is that we're spending more money on overtime. We're spending more money on substitutes. We're spending money on long-term substitutes. We're operating at lower capacity right now and not filling positions because for food service, we're in a pandemic season and they're not fully operationalized with 100% of students being back. But when that does occur, those positions will be necessary and to be fully operational. In transportation, we have all of our transportation staff driving. And what I mean when I say that is all of our mechanics are driving, our supervisor of transportation, our assistant, our coordinator of transportation, they are all behind the wheel and driving with all of those vacancies because we need to increase salaries to drive more drivers. And you can see, you heard me mention our school psychologist, our salaries are not regionally competitive, and so we've had a vacancy that has been in place all year, and we actually have had to contract out, which is far more costly than hiring someone long-term as an employee. So we thought that was just information that might be insightful for you to have. But really where I wanted to spend the majority of our time today, just not necessarily, making decisions. If a decision can be made, then hallelujah, let's all celebrate. But we wanted to share with you what we see as the objectives of the mid-year compensation that we have been talking about since the pandemic began. We know that we have increased sales tax revenue. We fared very well as a school division and as a county, which is a true blessing. And we know that we have to complete the 3rd year of the 2018 compensation study, and that the Board of Supervisors have indicated that they're committed to that 3-year process. We know that we need to prevent compensation regression.
That might be, the Board of Supervisors believes we've already committed and given what we said we would do with three-year compensation study, I think it's and I don't mean to cut you off, just wanna make sure we're all on the same page. That's still for debate.
It
We're saying
absolutely
that-
is.
We're saying that we gave you the 1.8, which was requested based on the 3 years, you received it in 2 years. You're saying that the study falls short.
Mr. Underwood, you're not on the right document. We're looking at this
I'm
document.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
I saw it, I looked at it.
That's
It's
okay.
Here it is, right here. You're saying that it falls short of the 1.5 that was needed. This is what you said you needed.
I'm not saying that at all, no, sir. If I could finish my comments and you might have better
But
understanding.
just to be clear, we believe we gave you the 1.8, and that's debatable.
Okay, thank you.
Go on.
So in terms of options that we feel are important to present, we've outlined them in the graphic that's at the bottom. We'll skip over some of the bullet points at the top. But there are 4 options that are really the most viable options to hold true to the 3-year implementation of the 2018 salary study, because we have not yet met the 2018 minimum market value salaries. And so the first is that you would give us the full access to the $1.5 million outlined in the FY21 circle on the previous visual. And that would, of course, meet the full FY21 salary increase, and it would close out the 2018 salary study. The second option is that you do a mid-year salary increase, retroactive January through June 30th. That would cost approximately $919,000 for FY21. But this too would also meet the 3rd year of the salary study, and it would be compliant with meeting 2018 salary study outcomes. The third option is a mid-year salary increase from March through June 30th at approximately $656,000. Again, this too would then close out the 3rd year of the salary study, and we would at that point meet the 2018 minimum market value salaries in FY21. And the 4th year is what I consider to be bare bones option. This is the must do, not the utopic scenario. It is essential that number 4, if not 1 through 3, is completed. And what I mean when I say that is we must have access to funding for a step increase. If we do not do a step increase, which is ideally, that is giving everyone their year of credit, we will actually regress, because we will be reintroducing compression to our scales that we had remedied together in the initiative that we began in 2019. And we also would not meet the minimum market value. So not only would we not close out the salary study, we'd be in worse condition than we were in 2019 when we began this endeavor. And then the red beneath indicates that if nothing is done in FY21, then we are automatically in a worse position. Regionally, we've regressed and we've compressed. So those are the options. We believe that FY21 is our pivot point. It is our tipping point. It is our opportunity to create change for Caroline County Public Schools. Many divisions around us are not doing mid-year salaries, but they will be doing 5% FY22, which means we're the apples to apples in FY19, FY20, FY22. FY21 is our sweet spot, and we have to capitalize on closing out that 3rd year of the salary study. So that is what I wanted to share. I know that you said it's up for debate, but these are the options that we feel are most viable, complete the study, and also secure the integrity of our salary scales. Continue on or
Yes,
pause for a
continue.
moment?
You have any questions? Board members have any questions?
Maybe pause for a moment.
Sure.
Is this number, well, I guess I should ask Mr. Cowley, how much additional funding do you have in the school budget in your budget proposal? 6 something?
806,000.
806,000 from the county
Yeah, and
transfer?
that does a 5% across the board. So it meets the requirement that for the match for the SOQ plus everybody 5
From the state?
from the
Right.
state. The issue is if you do anything in 21, their salaries go up, even if it's a step, that's gotta go over into 22 as well.
So.
So if
Dr.
you did the whole 1.5 million, you know, and you only did it from March to June 30th, it's not 1.5 million in 21, but it's another 1.5 million in 22 that's not there, not counting that 806 for the 5% moving forward. So that is, all the numbers she's talking about for 21 are right on point, but they all blend into 22 that aren't there now.
Right, so we're saying, or what you're saying is, right now, if we give you 1.5, 900, 600, or whatever, right now, that fixes your salaries for this current existing fiscal year we're in.
It actually closes out the third year of the study, yes,
But
sir.
that's what you want for something this year, even though we give it to you July 1, you can say it's retroactive, which is what you said, right?
I don't know that July 1 would be the start date. I think that would be
No,
something.
July 1 is the date we can give you the
Oh,
money.
absolutely, yes,
So
sir,
then we'll go back,
yes,
okay.
sir.
But he's only got 800,000 in the budget for you totally.
Correct, for FY 22.
Which you'd already be over.
So, yeah, if we get, you're saying you want this plus the 800,000.
That is what we're saying,
Yeah.
yes, sir. It'd be the 1.5
I bet you
million
have-
for FY 21
and
to do the
22.
whole kit and caboodle, which would
Right.
be the 5%
Okay.
for this year.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood, this wasn't a number in your 22 budget. This is a number covering 21 and 22.
No. 22 is based off of their current salaries. If y'all make an adjustment in 21, the floor of everybody goes up
Goes up
here, then
1.5.
5% on that in 22 is more than $806,000
Right.
plus whatever you go up. So any one of those options you take.
Right, and that's
In
an extra effect
21.
because we're doing current,
Yeah.
Current
So
plus next
say you did it with one-time money.
right?
Say you did it with one-time money. You put it in, and we're able to pay and adjust them starting retroactive March 1st, and everybody's salary goes up to the study.
Right.
It's not built into 22 yet. That automatically, that 1.5 goes into 22, not counting anything
Because then
else.
your 800,000 number
It's not part of
is
that.
really gonna be 1.2 or something like that.
It
We don't
goes
really
up.
know
I don't
what
know
it
if it
is.
goes up that much, but it would go up. To
Okay.
do 5% on 1.5 more 1.5 more million salary, you know.
But your point, Dr. Calveric, is every school system is getting 5% because that's what the state said.
For FY 22, and that's what happened also
So
in
you really
FY
don't get
19
raised.
and FY 20. And so we never made any gains
Right.
regionally because the
Right.
state was generous, you were
Right.
generous in matching what was needed, but we never went above and beyond. That's why I feel like FY 21 is the sweet spot for us. The cards are on the table, the stars are aligned, and the time, we've increased sales tax revenue. Come on, I'm trying to lay it on thick here, people.
It's working.
How does aside for 22?
How do we know what that number is, Charlie?
Look.
Can somebody tell us what the number is?
This circle graph actually accounts for the cumulative impact of if you moved forward in FY 21 with the 1.5 million, that would, and then the next year, the 1.6 accounts for the 1.5. So you'd add those two numbers together.
3.2.
That's why it's about $100,000 more.
We put 800 in. So we put 800 in, and we really talking the difference between 800 and 3.2, which you see the difference.
Well, you also would add the 860-some thousand from the state. So,
Right,
so it would be less than 860 from the state for FY 22. Because you're talking about you doing 806, the state's saying 866.
Right.
That equals the 1.6.
Right.
So really, you would be 1.5 plus the 806.
Can somebody write these down for me at any point in time? I don't do well with words.
We're happy to do that if that's helpful. Yes, sir.
It's basically 1.5 and 22 that we don't have in today, local money.
I need to understand what you've got now, the 800 and some. If we give more money over that 800 and some, how does it affect 22?
Whatever you.
Based on what they're doing.
Whatever you get plus 5% on
Plus
top of that.
5%, yeah, you gotta add that.
So
up.
whatever you get,
The eight.
put 5% on top of that. So you give them 500,000, put 5% on. Rough number.
So we got.
So if you give them $1 million, 5% more for 22 on that same $1 million.
Never mind.
So we just wanted to share what we thought our perspective was associated with FY21 and what could potentially be the outcome of inaction or inactivity. We thought that was important, and to share our vacancies. That's not anything we've shared with you in the past, so we thought that might be important for you. So the next item is just to briefly revisit the CIP proposal that Mr. Cully shared on March 9th, the Planning Commission recommendation, and revisit the FY20 carryover funding. And we just thought that it was important to circle back. This is an ongoing conversation. We do not need to belabor the documents that are behind this, but we did want to state that we had a $2.7 million CIP submission for FY22. And I think Mr. Cully, when he presented, he shared somewhere around $800,000, $899. And so there was obviously a discrepancy in what was submitted, and 313,000 of that 899 was actually earmarked to be paid for out of the FY20 reversion monies. And in the past, that would have been covered, those costs would have been covered either by general fund or by detention center profits that you had secured. And so that was something that we felt, while it is certainly going towards capital improvements, we had hoped that we could again have conversation about the fact that we had this list of ongoing projects rather than supplanting the money that you normally had given us. You supplanted it with the reversion funds. And so we wanted to just revisit. These were the projects that we had hoped to achieve with the remaining 1.7. We also wanted to share that when students and coaches and staff went before the Planning Commission, they made a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors and the County Administrator that the wrestling facility and that the turf be funded during this fiscal year. And so it just felt like it was important for us to restate that and to revisit the options and to ask if there has been any additional conversation in relation to the options that we presented to you in February regarding the 1.7 million.
Dr. Everett, we have had some conversation.
Okay.
I think our board is certainly. I'll be ready to take a motion from the board, and I'll leave it at that. 1.784 is, as I told you from my perspective, is not reversion funds, and that's me speaking as the Green Church.
Sure.
Not saying that George says they won't pay. From my perspective, it should have been included in reversion funds just because of the times that we're operating in, the anomaly in the time that we're in. So I do not feel that should be part of the reversion fund, but it takes 4 votes to leave it back in the general fund. It takes 4 votes to put in the CIP for school. We haven't had that vote yet.
Is there an anticipated timeline associated with that? Is there a sense of urgency to draw this to a close before we get to FY21 carryover conversations?
For me, it's a sense of urgency.
I like that.
As you probably well know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would like my vote, but I would like to bring it to a close.
Sure.
But it's up to the board when we bring this to a close.
I do have a question. I got a call from my planning commission member, and one thing that I never heard, she said the wrestling team needed new mats, and I said I thought they needed a new building. She said, well, they need a new building too, but their mats are falling apart. I didn't see this in anything. Was she mistaken, or is that something that's rolled into something else? Or is that part of the building fund?
I am not equipped to speak to wrestling mats this evening. However, I will eyeball Dr. Monroe, who's sitting in the back and oversees our athletic advisory committee. Dr. Monroe, do you have any insight associated with wrestling mats?
Is the question about the mats that they compete on when they're wrestling a dual meet, or the mats in the actual trailer? Is that the question?
No, she said the mats that they have are torn and that they needed to be replaced, and I just never saw a price tag on that. She didn't specify as to which one.
Yeah, the mats that are currently in the trailer are ripped up, torn up, even the ones that are on the walls to protect students from running into the walls. And I actually have pictures. I will tell you that our system went down today, meaning our internet, and I was gonna have a copy, but I have one copy. You can see the conditions of the wrestling.
I just want to know if it was included in the price of the building.
Let me call to order. If we need to have a presentation about this, we'll do that.
I just wanted
I'd
to
rather-
know if that was in the price of
Yeah,
the
but I
building.
don't wanna get into showing pictures and all that, I
No.
just wanna get back to what we're gonna do here and move on. If we need to have them come and do a presentation regarding any additional costs, I would prefer to do that, rather than do it at this time.
Well, if I could suggest that if you could just let me know, there's no sense building a building for the wrestling team if they don't have mats to practice on that are safe. I just want to know if that was included.
Mrs. Long, it was included in that entire project for outfitting the entire building as well as
Okay.
erect the
That's
building.
all I needed to know, if it was in that 250.
Thank you.
So the question before us, guys, when do we anticipate on, and young lady, anticipate on closing this issue on the 20 carryover CIP funds?
I mean, personally, I'm okay with, taking it up sometime obviously before June 30th. I don't think tonight is the night for us to sit there and decide on $1.7 million. I think we have to have a discussion ourselves, it's just me on one vote, as you say. I think we have to have a discussion about the remaining topics, if there's anything that we're gonna fund among ourselves with the school board, or at a public meeting where we're talking about it, not here. So add it to an agenda, we can add it to an agenda on one of our board of supervisors meetings, a discussion among ourselves. And that would be after, I would like to have a chance to talk to Mr. Colley, Mr. Whiteman, and so forth, some of the people, some of the players, my planning commission, because I know them there, I haven't had a chance to talk to them, what's been presented to them, to have a little more clarity on some of the stuff before I go about it.
My only issue is that we've been kicking the can down the road since February, when they first asked for all the reversion funds, 3-point-something million, and we agreed to give them 1.1 million plus, and then we agreed to do the 1.2. My concern is we looked at this, and as far as I'm concerned, I told you guys I'm a nonsense guy. Either we are going to do it or we're not, and we move on. There's no use of kicking this can down the road.
Not a question of
When's our first meeting in April?
Excuse me?
When's our first meeting in April?
Second Tuesday in April.
Put it on the agenda then.
It's not, Mr. Chairman, it's not a question of kicking the can down the road. I mean, we've had reversion funds here sitting for a long time as well. I mean, this is money that's obviously, as you say, taxpayer money, and I don't want to rush into something. We've already given them half of it, I guess. What did we give them, 1.5 or whatever it was, to do some of the projects.
1.2.
1.2. Okay, we've given 1.2. So, before we move forward with anything else, we need to see if something is necessary. So sitting here and saying we need to make a decision tonight, I don't think it's kicking, or in a month or two, I don't think it's kicking the can down the road. I think we need to be well informed before we make this decision.
However the board wishes to move forward, I'm okay with that. But if you want to wait till April 13th, that's fine with me. That will be on the agenda for April 13th.
Thank you. I think it is important to note that this list is not inclusive of the wrestling facility or this.
Right. It's not.
And this one does include the wrestling facility, but the turf is part of CIP. That wasn't part of reversion. So separate entities. However, the planning commission did reference both of those. So thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Underwood, just to draw your attention back to the form, the last time that we met, We did present multiple options that took into consideration previous feedback from the board. So, there are 2 additional options. There.
1, 2, and 3.
Correct.
3 options. A, B, and C.
The last update is a very exciting update. We're elated to scream this from the rooftops, which is not always the case when you're talking about health insurance. We budgeted for a 0% increase, and we actually had an 8.8% decrease. And so that is very exciting. When you look at our 6-year trend, you can see that we have a 6.57% health insurance increase over 6 years. So we wanted to share that with you. It's hot off the press. We haven't even shared with our staff. So surprise staff, we've been saying there'd be no premium increase, but we actually have a decrease. And so we wanted to let you know as soon as we were made available of that information.
What could that mean in dollars?
Good question. It actually means approximately $600,000. Let's see, did I write the exact number down? $650,000 of a savings. Now, I want you to keep in mind, that's a good question. So last year, we had a 9.64% insurance increase. We, as the employer, took care of that whole increase. None of that was passed to the employee. And so, not that it's a wash, 9.64 is higher than 8.8 reduction, but we will be utilizing those funds internally as the employer in order to support other initiatives and endeavors. And we have to wait to see what that looks like based on, how we receive funds from the county. Now, that may be that we need to use those monies to support those mandated positions. It may be that we need to use that money to support compensation. We need to see how all of the various factors play out when the governor signs off on everything and what our ADM looks like on March 31st.
And so that doesn't automatically go back to the employee.
No, it does not, because we absorbed the 9.64% increase last year.
But if it did go back to employees, that could be part of their raise going forward.
Well, we could use it as recurring costs. So, for example, I mentioned to you the need in FY21 to give a step increase.
Right.
Let's say that did not occur, but we felt the need to fill that hole. You gave the 5%, that includes one step. Potentially, we could use that $650,000 if we can pay for those mandated positions in another way to do that additional steps. They'd get 2 steps. And so we have a couple of those ideas, either mandated positions or compensation, but we need to figure out how all of the puzzle pieces fall. But those are the 2 primary options that are most meaningful.
Sure, and I know Dr. Rollins felt it's not gonna let me have anything to do with this.
So it is exciting though. We're pleased that the efforts we've done have resulted in some great outcomes. Yes, sir. And we do intend on going out to bid. So that is part of our options that we want to investigate to make sure that we are doing the best process and looking at the best options. Doesn't mean we'll make a change, but we want to know what's out there in a good year. No, that is it. Thank you.
Dr. Rollins Fells, you have anything?
So in terms of action items, was your question satisfied about the numbers?
Well, if you just send it to me, like in numbers, or spreadsheet, maybe just see put together a spreadsheet, so we can see if we get X amount of placement. Charlie said it was just 5%.
So I have April as a tentative for April 13 for carryover. You guys have the options that were presented with that. We've given the update on the projects, the mandated positions, that was just informational, so that we're all aware of unfunded mandates. Compensation, that requires some action. So that then we could wrap up, our budgeting for FY22. And so I think that you guys have all the information that you need. I would ask that if you have questions, to go ahead and email them so that we can make sure that we answer it, so that you're well informed to the point at your meeting and your decision. Yes, Dr. Morales?
I heard Mr. Underwood say something about a presentation on the 13th. Would it be allowable for public comment? And is there a presentation needed in reference to the wrestling room situation?
I don't think so.
No,
She
she
said
did.
that's encompassed in the building, so I don't think so.
Okay, just wanted to make
That's,
sure.
Right.
thank you.
Okay, so I don't have, do you have any other action items or wisdom? Okay,
I think any more comments before we adjourn?
Could I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned two words. You talked about mandated positions versus non-mandated positions. And I think you were referencing the fact that the school board has the authority, I guess, to look at the non-mandated position. And the only thing I would say is that we must also remember that because a position is non-mandated, doesn't mean it's not important. And doesn't mean that it does not impact the school system tremendously. And I can tell you, there's not one position that we have that if we eliminated it, would not be a negative impact on the students in Caroline County. And I just want you to keep that in mind.
Mr. Thomas, I mean, Lord have mercy, Mr. Taylor.
They always
Just
call
going-
it
I'm
Mr. Thomas.
just going to say to you that.
One of us likes that, and one of us doesn't.
We believe that all positions are important as well. But we're gonna make decisions, and we're just gonna say, you have to make decisions. If it comes down to it, we're gonna leave those decisions on your side of the table. And that's what you ask us to do. But we're gonna do what we can do, and I can make you a promise that it's gonna be tighter than it's ever been. And that's just a fact of dollars and cents.
are you going to close board comment?
Yes.
Okay,
That's like,
so,
if we have,
I know that we're all ready to go, and this evening, I know that there have been some references to the comments that I made, and so, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say, in this setting, that I absolutely meant what I said.
right, that's right, I got you.
And I meant it exactly how I said it.
Right.
The level of professionalism, the decorum, it is a non-negotiable. And we don't have to agree, and I love how, Mr. Thomas, described many years ago that the process is adversarial, but that doesn't mean that we have to be.
Right.
And I think that there's a way that we need to move. So if there's a question about dollar amounts and figures, we have well-capable folks that understand the nuances. Let's ask the questions. I am a big advocate for our finance folks getting with your finance folks and making sure that we're looking at apples and apples, as you like to say. And if it's something that's not resolved, put the facts on the table and let's get it resolved. We need to turn the corner of 5 and 6 and 7 years worth of decisions not being made. And we absolutely need to get past the personal, historic hurts. And so while I understand that this was a lighthearted conversation in terms of joking about it, I just wanted to say that I'm very serious about that. I have a lot of respect for everybody in this room, and I know that we all feel the pressure, but there is a way that we should conduct business, especially when it comes to money. So I just wanted to say that so that there's no misconstruing my words. So I appreciate it, and if there's anything else that we need to provide, we'll be sure to get on that. And thank you for your behavior.
Any other board members that comment? Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Probably motion second, we are adjourned.
Thank you.